Welcome back to Saturday Morning Ultimate Spider-Man. This is our continuing series where we're trying to explain to you the best parts about the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline that happened in the Ultimate Universe. And today, we're going to be covering the second part of the Clone Saga. Now in our last video, Peter has fought against a villain who actually had the same face as him. But he also learned that Mary Jane has gone missing. As he searched through the abandoned storehouse that they would often sneak to, he ran into a woman who was also wearing a Spider-Man suit and using his abilities. She easily defeated Peter, and then he tried to chase after her, and that's when he saw a girl walk into his old house. Except that it wasn't Mary Jane, it was the supposedly dead Gwen Stacy. Outside of Peter's house, Gwen Stacy, now looking like the Carnage monster, jumps straight into a group of robots and rips through, tearing everything apart. Nick shouts for them to fire, and the robots begin to shoot beams, hitting the house. And inside, Peter grabs Aunt May, and Richard Parker, Peter Parker's father, who joined us, if you really don't know what's going on, you really should check out the last episode, tells his son that he will take care of Aunt May. Peter needs to get out there and stop whatever is going on. Peter hesitates for a moment, and then Richard tells him, "You need to listen to your father." Peter turns, jumping out of the house, vaulting off of the robot, shouting for Nick Fury. Peter makes his way over to him, grabs his gun, telling him that he needs to stop. His aunt is in the house, and Nick shouts for him to get off! You're under arrest! But before anything else can happen, Peter is hit by one of the robot's beams, and then Nick points his gun at Peter, telling him, "I understand, but you need to stay down." Peter lunges back up, grabbing at Nick's throat, but then another robot fires, hitting him, and Nick tells him, "I'm really sorry, but you need to stay down. The next hit will paralyze you for good." He holds up his gun and then is blasted with fire, and a voice tells him, "Dude, leave that guy alone." Everyone looks up to see the Fantastic Four and Reed Richards, asking what exactly is going on here. Nick tells Reed to take his team and go home, and Reed stomps him, asking, "Why are you doing this? Peter's done nothing wrong." Nick shouts that this is a military operation and he's giving them a direct order to go home. Ben Grimm looks at Gwen and he says, "No offense, but she is one ugly." But before Ben can finish his sentence, Gwen grabs him and flings him across the street into a building. Reed shouts to Nick that they just can't take over a neighborhood because they found a clone. And Peter interrupts them, screaming that his aunt is still inside. She had a stroke or something, and my dad is in there too. Sue Storm pushes through the group, telling Nick that there's an older woman inside that needs their help. What is the matter with him? And while Sue creates a force field and goes inside of the house, Reed stretches around, slowly pulling Gwen down, stating, "This is just fascinating." Inside, Sue checks on Aunt May, and she asks Richard what he has done to help. Richard stumbles over his words, telling her, nothing. So Sue says, "You're a doctor, but either way, we're gonna need to get her out of here." Once Sue brings May outside, she tells Peter that she's going to take her to the hospital along with his dad. Peter tells her thanks, and Sue flies away. Johnny then asks if he would like him to take him as well. Peter turns back, telling him no, and then he charges through the robots, calling out to Nick Fury. Nick tells his men to do it, full power. And suddenly there's a bright blue light that blasts through, covering the entire area. And then in a flash, it's over. Everyone stares at Gwen, now back in her human form, and she collapses. Peter falls to his knees, and Nick walks over to him, pointing his gun, telling him, "I wasn't lying before. You don't get to be Spider-Man anymore." And Peter looks at him, "Tell me what you did." And Nick sighs, telling him that he didn't do anything. It was his clones, and he's truly sorry about this. Back at the Oscorp facility, Mary Jane asks, "What did you do?" The cloned Peter says that she knows what Oz was, right? He injected her with it. The stuff that made Otto Octavius into Dr. Octopus, Norman Osborn into Green Goblin, and with it, he recreated her. Mary Jane shouts that he put something inside of her, and as she steps forward, she falls over in pain. Cloned Peter asks if she's okay, and then a giant red arm shoots up, and a hulking red beast stands up and screams! Back at the house, Nick Fury puts cuffs on Peter Parker, and Reed Richards says that he can't do this. Peter just looks at him and tells him to just let it go. It's all over now. Suddenly, the Spider-Woman from before jumps in, kicking Nick Fury away, and she grabs Peter Parker and leaps off. Johnny Storm tries to follow, but as they get into the city, he loses sight of them. Down on the alleyway, the woman puts her fingers to her lips until Johnny flies off. Once the coast is clear, she breaks the cuffs holding Peter back, and tells Peter to follow her. The two jump onto the Jersey Turnpike, and when they land onto a passing truck, Peter asks, "Who are you?" The woman looks at him, stating, "Spider-Woman?" And Peter asks again. So the woman pulls her mask down to show that she looks like him. Peter asks if she's him, and the woman tells him, "Kinda, sort of. I'm a clone of you." Right now, we're heading over to find the other clones, and I'll tell you everything that I know. It all started about a month ago when I was born. There was a man named Ben Reilly. He was saying how there had been so many other clones, except in her case, they decided they wanted to try making a female. They said that she would be working as a special agent for the CIA, and that her name was going to be Jessica drew. Ben kept going on about how the CIA and FBI made a deal and allowed him to keep working on his work with the Parker sample that he took when things went wrong. But just before she passed back out, she remembers hearing Ben say something about making her like the next Captain America, except that there would be an army of 200 Spider-Men. As Jessica sits back, she asks Peter if he's okay. Peter calmly tells her no. In fact, he should be like in a coma. Jessica goes on to explain that one day during testing, one of the other clones broke out of their cell and began to tear the place down. It was after it escaped that all of the doors to the other cells opened and everyone broke free. Peter asks if one of those clones took Mary Jane, and Jessica says that she thinks so, but she's hoping that she's wrong. But right now, this is their stop, and they jump off of the truck. Peter follows behind, and then he sees that they're now at the old Oscorp facility. They see what Mary Jane has now become, and she's fighting the Peter clone. Jessica webs up the six-armed Spider-Man, pulling him to safety, and then she takes off his mask, telling him to rise and shine. And as the six-armed Spider-Man looks at the real Peter, Peter tells him, "We're gonna do our oh my gods later." The six-armed Peter then looks back at Mary Jane and says, "That idiot did it. He injected her with Oz." Mary Jane continues to thrash about, and just before slamming a piece of metal onto the clone Peter Parker, Peter runs up telling Mary Jane to stop. This is the real him. She screams as she starts to revert, and the cloned evil Peter says, "Look, she can protect herself now." Peter punches the clone, shouting that there's no Oz here. This place was empty, so where did you get it from? And the voice says, "From our father." Peter looks back and he sees Otto Octavius walking in, along with Nick and Reed. Over at the hospital, Sue and Richard follow the doctors as they rush Aunt May to the ER, and as she's taken away, Richard asks if she's going to be okay. Sue notices that it's a bit strange that Richard, being a doctor, doesn't know what the outcome would be, and she says that she would like to take Richard's blood to check on a few things. Back at the Oscorp facility, Peter stares at Otto Octavius, thinking that he's going to kill him. He can do this, he can kill him, and he won't go to jail, he's a kid. But as Peter tries to step forward, Jessica holds him back. Otto tells Peter that it's good to see him again. The clones are right there, so if you'd be so kind as to wrap them all up for me. Reed looks at the clones and says that he made 3 clones, and one of those was a female? With one of the clones, they denied a clone its Y chromosome in phase 2. As you can see, she was a success. Jessica looks at Otto, asking if he was the one who created her, and he smiles. "Yes, it was me." She grits her teeth, telling him that she's going to kill him. But before she can move, Nick pulls out his gun, telling her, "Don't. There's been enough of that tonight." Johnny lands by Peter, asking what the heck is going on, and Peter picks up Mary Jane, shouting that they need to help her. She's been infected with Oz. Johnny shouts that they can fix that, right? And Nick tells him no. He needs the Fantastic Four to pack up and leave. As Johnny and Nick argue, Peter Parker pushes them aside, stating, "Please help Mary Jane." Ben takes her, and Reed says that he can do everything that he can, and the clone Peter shouts, "No, she's okay! I fixed her!" The clone Peter then jumps up, and the soldiers open fire on him. Jessica begins to punch the soldiers, and Nick fires his gun, shouting that he's had enough of this. Otto Octavius tells Nick that he appreciates the good work here, but this is currently their problem, so they'll be taking their subjects back now. Nick says that he ain't taking crap. There's a lot that he's going to be answering for, and above all of that, he's under arrest for this little house of horrors that he created. Peter pushes through, asking, "How did you do it? How are you not dead or in jail?" And Otto laughs, stating that he made a deal with the federal government to help design a super soldier. It would seem that there are many people in the United States government that truly hate Nick Fury, and they didn't want him to be the only person with what they would call a Captain America button. So now, thanks to the good people over at the FBI, he can continue his work as Dr. Octavius before everything went wrong. Otto then goes on, stating that, "I have your blood sample from your friend Kurt Connor's assistant, which allowed me to continue my work, and Jessica there is proof that it's working." He then leans into Peter and he tells him, "It just so happens that my work completely perverts and destroys every single part of you and your life. Every single part." But before leaving, Otto mentions that as for his father, well, your father really did die in that plane crash. Peter tries to hold himself back, and he tells Nick Fury that he will make him a deal. Tell his guys to give him 10 minutes and he will surrender and they'll all win. Otto laughs, stating that that's cute, but Nick isn't the one in charge here. We're gonna round up the Parkers and take them all back, and then we can use whatever force is needed. I can make more. Nick pauses for a moment, and then he tells his team, "You heard the man. Set up a perimeter around the building and everyone move out." Otto asks, "What are you doing?" And Nick tells him, "He's right. I'm not in charge here. So, go on, be in charge." As Nick shuts the door to leave, the six-armed Spider-Man pushes everyone aside and jumps on Otto, stating, "Hi, Daddy!" As he slams Otto down, the real Peter jumps in and just as quickly is knocked away. The metal in the room begins to twist, and Otto shouts that he tried so hard to keep this part of his life secret. And that's when the metal pipe shoots through the air, impaling the six-armed Spider-Man, and Otto continues, stating that it was the arms that made me. It was metal, and I can control metal. Outside, Nick Fury pulls out his gun, shouting for everyone to halt, and Henry walks up stating, "That's nice. I'm with the FBI, so no offense to you, but you should just stand down." Henry then asks, "Where's Otto?" And Nick asks, "Who? The guy with the bowl cut in the show that should be in jail at this very moment?" Henry shouts for him to stop that, and Nick goes on stating that he wouldn't have made a deal with Otto to make super soldier clone experiments behind his back, and now it blew up in your face and you're going to get fired, aren't you? Back inside, Otto creates more mechanical arms out of the scrap metal, shouting that he will not mess around with them. Jessica needs to surrender or I will kill her and clone another. Peter jumps at Otto and Otto knocks him away, asking, "Who's next?" One of the arms shoots back, hitting Jessica, and as she picks herself back up, she tries webbing up Otto Octavius. As the webbing hits the arms, Otto laughs, and then he launches one, slamming Jessica into the computers. Otto then turns back to Peter, shouting, "You need to embrace your defeat!" But this time, as the arm is thrown, Peter punches through it, shattering it. Otto then asks, "What? No witty comment? That's how I know you're scared." Jessica shouts, "No, that's not it. It's just how we know when he's being serious." And she swings in, kicking Otto to the ground. As Otto Octavius gets back up, all of the metal on the ground begins to swirl around, sucking everything up, and Otto shouts, "Why is it that you always have to involve yourself in my life's work? Just die already!" As the metal flies around, Peter and Jessica jump along the arms, and together they punch Otto Octavius right in the head. The metal in the room starts to fall, and Peter huffs, stating, "That felt good." And Jessica says, "Yeah, but it's kind of lame that it took both of us to do it." Jessica checks on the other two clones and says that they're both dead. Peter says that this is all so weird. They need to go. She jumps up, stating that he can't be serious and surrender. Peter tells her that he has to. If he runs, they're going to chase him, and right now, Mary Jane and Aunt May's health is more important. Jessica leaps away, telling him that she isn't going to stick around here and argue with herself. Outside, Nick and Henry continue to bicker as Peter shuffles out, holding Otto's body. Nick asks, "Where's the girl?" Peter says that she, left? There are two more clones inside, though, both dead, and Henry says that that's good. Peter looks at Henry and shouts, "Good? Tell me, because I would really like to know if there's any part of you that understands how insanely evil you really are." Henry turns back to Peter, and before he can yell, Johnny flies down, telling Peter that he has to come with him. He grabs a hold of Peter's arms and he flies him over to the Baxter building, and inside of the lab, Dr. Franklin Storm looks over Mary Jane, and Reed tells Peter that they isolated the Oz compound, but Mary Jane begins to toss and yell and turn, and then her eyes open as she sees Peter. She jumps out of bed, running at him, and asks, "You're the real one, right?" Mary Jane then looks around and sees Johnny and asks, "What's going on?" Peter says that it's a long story. Otto cloned him and Gwen Stacy, and all of the clones escaped. Aunt May had a heart attack, and one of the clones kidnapped her. Mary Jane thinks about it and shouts, "Oh my god, a clone?" But Johnny whispers to her that this is where she hugs him. She latches onto Peter, and Peter says that he's sorry, and she says that it wasn't his fault, right? So why apologize? Peter then says that he loves her. She was right and he was wrong. He almost lost. Peter looks at everyone, asking if she's going to be okay, and Reed says yes, they managed to remove the Oz formula, but they would still very much like to watch over Mary Jane for a little bit. And be it as it may take some time, but they can cure him as well. Wouldn't have to be Spider-Man anymore if he didn't want to. Now that concludes the actual clone saga. There is a bit of an epilogue that goes to this, where we do dive into who's actually a clone and who's not. It's not nearly as convoluted as the original storyline from all the way back in the 90s, but it does clean up quite nicely, and this is the introduction of Spider-Woman to the Ultimate Universe, a clone of Peter Parker. Yes, as you discover as time goes on, she does have all of the memories of being Guy Peter Parker and is attracted to Mary Jane, and it creates a kind of a weird situation for her. She was a very interesting character in the Ultimate Universe, but with the Ultimate Universe having ended, she's no longer around at all. Either way, the next thing that we're going to be jumping to is the next significant moment in the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline so that we can set up for the inevitable end of the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you are curious about Aunt May, of course, she does recover from the heart attack, and she is kind of okay with him being Spider-Man, though she does think the outfit's horrible. Either way, subscribe to this channel to get the final episodes of Ultimate Spider-Man, as we are now coming to the close of this weekly series. And don't forget, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian, where we can talk about whatever you want. I'll see you next time right here.